What if Anakin Skywalker fell on Yavin 4?
Why'd she have to die?
Anakin, what's wrong?
Why couldn't I save her? I know I could have. It's all Obi-Wan's fault. He's holding me back. I hate them.
Sometimes there are things no one can fix. You're not all powerful.
Well, I should be. Someday I will be. I will be the most powerful Jedi ever. I will even learn to stop people from dying.
What would happen if Anakin Skywalker, Jedi Padawan to Obi-Wan Kenobi, fell to the dark side at the start of the Clone Wars? What if he fully gave in to his anger and hate? And what now? Having first met and fought Asajj Ventress upon the Gungan colony world of Omadun, the very same ambush that claimed the life of Jedi Master Glaive, such an occurrence would occur again nearly a month later in George's timeline. Being now directly responsible for the deaths of 2 Jedi Masters and 1 Padawan, even at this early stage of the war, her brief skirmish against Jedi Master Mace Windu is also to be commended, purely because she managed to survive. Yet all were but a test and prelude to her truest of goals, the very first given since her apprenticeship to Count Dooku began, to strike down Anakin Skywalker and prove herself as Sith, or never return at all. A fitting offer for the already orphaned and fallen Jedi. Seeking to capitalize on such an opportunity during the orbital battle over Mundalinist, she would manage to capture Anakin's attention before jumping into hyperspace, luring this Jedi Padawan to the forested moon of Yavin 4 to isolate him. There and then, upon the ruined landscape, nearly barren for 3,500 years, they fought like titans among the wildlife, dragging and chasing one another through emptied temples and haunted tombs. What would have easily disrupted or slain the mundane, neither would permit themselves to fail or fall, not when their pride demanded otherwise, not when so much and so many had already been lost, nearly 4 months into the Clone Wars. And so, the Force was summoned, codes cried aloud, and sabers slashed, while fetid vines were severed, and trees split in 2, carved and cleaved as anything and everything before this duo of death was skewered and squeezed. Continuing this clash exactly as they did in George's timeline, one fueled by their emotion as the other sought detachment. The latter struggled not just against his physical foe, but the bonds that clung to him from the past. Having narrowly lost his master just 1 month ago against the very same assassin now striving to seek his own head, there was no fear in this beacon of power as he blocked, parried, and surged forth. Only rage and anger. Anger towards the enemy in front of him, yes. Anger towards Count Dooku for taking his hand, yes. And anger towards all those among the Confederacy of Independent Systems, of course. But none were the source of his frustration. Instead, Anakin was angry at himself, because with each swing of his saber, with every flustered burst of the Force that he let loose, his foe continued to survive. More and more, longer and longer, as their enshrined shuffle of battle was stretched beyond belief. So oblivious to his surroundings, too blinded by his rage and lust to strike down the dual-wielding figure before him, he never took any heed to care, notice, or count the lined horizon of Massassi warriors now abound, soon dueling amongst the center of a stone courtyard, too old to foresee or count its founding. Stances were formed, and the Force was channeled. Ventress, with her dual-wielding mastery of Jarkai, and Anakin, a student of Gemso. Having trained solely under the arts of Ataru and Xian for his entire life as a Jedi, Such commonality was tossed aside at the beginning of the war, when his right hand was severed and his pride was lost. An unfamiliar stance, well noticed by his foe. Anger would grow 10 times over as he chastised his sloppy performance, mockingly speaking as if she herself was his master, well trained in their arts and ways. Only then would thunder strike, while clouds swirled as countless droplets began to plummet, basking trees beneath them. So too were the gathered hosts in attendance, swiftly splashed, yet still as statues they remained, lightsabers humming, animals howling, beasts clawing bark, while sizzled streaks of steam arose from the bladed blades that Anakin and Ventress bore, unmoving and unwavering, rigid and rock solid, waiting for their moment. And that moment came with the bellowing of a great boom and a roaring chorus as Masashi warriors chanted and adjacent branches were scorched by lightning, enabling rigid boots and bare heels to surge forth like a stampeding wave. Louder and louder, the Masashi bands abound were crying as one, acting as a siren amongst the endless forest, and tracking the participants that dared to invade their home, both of them too busy to notice. Further and farther they went, passing even more unnumbered fields of rooted trees until the shores of a great lake were breached, and crossing that too with an obscured network of water-covered stepping stones were found. All of this was taking too long. At least, that's what the Jedi Padawan told himself, as undisturbed and ancient etchings were dashed, scarring the land and pelting the runes that decorated them, especially the now lavish temple around him. If only he was stronger. If only he was quicker. If only he had more power.
Someday I will be. I will be the most powerful Jedi ever.
Anakin.
I promise you. It's all Obi-Wan's fault. He's jealous. He's holding me back. They're dead. Every single one of them. And I slaughtered them like animals. I hate them.
Power not to just end this battle, but the war itself. Thoughts that came and refused to leave ever since the haunting murder of his mother, still fresh to memory. Teeth were grinding. The mechanical gears of his robotic hand were turning and his eyes were glinting, focused on his foe, yet also adrift in his own world, too far gone to sense his own anger creeping into hate. So many choices had brought him here. Not just the fabled trap from Ventress herself, but the allure of the dark side. Having already tasted its power, and knowing well the result that such a boon would give him again. The only thing holding you back is yourself. A voice too deep and dark to be his own, reverberating like a drum, as fiery as the lit blazes around him. So too immune to the weather that soaked him. Soon paired swiftly with doubt towards his hope, and denial coupled with his lust, as laughter lynched his pride. Fall, so I may rise. Ventress herself sought to draw on her own emotions, training and striving to become Sith, yet still nothing but a fallen Jedi in name. Nothing compared to the pinnacled sensations of darkness that immediately imploded in front of her. The veil was then broken, and a vast echo cried out and across the force itself, akin to a wound, gaping and oozing The Jedi could feel this dilemma, and so too could his master, Obi-Wan Kenobi. But they were too far to stop it, because Anakin Skywalker had finally given in fully to his fear, to his anger, to his hatred, and above all, his suffering. Crying out and aloud with a powerful force stream that shundered and cracked all around him. So vast and limitless was his hatred towards those that wronged him. Even the would-be assassin before him was taken aback, no longer trying to kill or strike him, but simply striving to deflect, retreat, and survive. And with every missed thrust, with every single delayed pillar that he crushed, and every sculpture that he turned to mush, rage grew and grew, and patience was erased, as power promised would soon find its place, choking and squeezing, tightening and gripping, as he finally caught his prey with the Force, constrained and disarmed from afar, before being dragged and yanked into the metallic hand of Anakin. So far gone now was this Padawan that the voice of his fallen master couldn't reach him. Not in the sacred temple that he now stood, not in the very resting place of Kun himself, Dark Lord of the Sith, snapping the neck of his gagging and gargling victim. Her lightsabers themselves went out, and her body soon crashed, the opposite of Anakin's pride, now bounding and boosted by power almost too much to contain. Once a Jedi Knight himself, with an urge to know more than he should, Kun too knew best the tempting allure of the dark side, promising the same promises that the Dark Lords of old once gave him, all of which were true, of course. To give in to your passion and feel nothing but what you and your emotions deem worthy of feeling. No longer forbidden from attachment, but embracing it, drawing power from it, and becoming more powerful because of it. So invested in the spiritual presence of the Dark Lord now appearing before him, soaked robes and drenched hair was ignored. So too was the corpse of Ventress, as Mashashi warriors went fast to consume and feast, and to eat like beasts. And the sun of Yavin then set, as the jungled moon went nearly dark, saved only by the late lingering silhouettes of twilight among far-flung skylines. But even these auras of color would pale in comparison to the amber tint now clogging each of Anakin's eyes. From here, the Dark Lord of the Sith would give his newly gained apprentice his first mission, in order to prove himself, to find his way off-planet, since Ventress destroyed his own spaceship, and then to journey to Korriban. Swiftly falling to his knees while extinguishing his own lightsaber, Anakin pledged himself to serve, as long as he could gain power enough to end the war, protect his wife, and prove to everyone that he really was chosen by the Force. Still openly calling himself a Jedi and refusing to fall, he too promised to follow that which the Council wouldn't show. Because he wasn't a Sith. He was a Jedi, and he just wanted to know more than he should. Too young was this Padawan to know that which Kun had told himself all those thousands of years ago, when he too went to Korriban. The fact that he also openly refused to fall, knowing not that he had already fallen. This would lead Anakin towards finding the now abandoned ship of Ventress and stealing it before jumping into hyperspace, leaving almost nothing for his master to find. on arrival. Except the charred remains of the battalion sent early as reinforcements. Gaining nothing of note from the too thoroughly damaged wiring of R4 as well, the wounded echo through the force still chilled him. Not just the fear or the anger, but the hatred itself. The level of suffering that Anakin had felt, having to toss such concern and igniting his saber as Massassi warriors could sense the light side of the force that followed him. A presence they sought to snuff and consume, to stomp and silence. And as this Jedi Master fought not just for his life, but the Republic he represented, so too did those that sought to undermine him. Thousands, if not billions of parsecs away, where Darth Tyrannus and his own Dark Master could sense the same Sith as the Jedi. Yet for all the perception they required to feel such a change, none now could find, tell, or follow the Padawan that caused them. Launching himself into space before arriving upon Korriban and landing upon its sanded surface, reminded of Tatooine and of the brief time he spent here nearly a year ago, languishing in the heat and the hated memories of such a thought. Sand crumbled underfoot, igniting his lightsaber and slaying fast every beast and core slug that sought to crowd his path, guided solely by the dark side of the Force, yet refusing to admit or see it. Farther he walked, and deeper beneath the surface, entering the lidless and seemingly voided valley of the Dark Lords. Sacred for Sith, the scorching sun too then found itself abandoned and lost and cemented and enshrined as stone blockaded their visage, and all went dark save the ever-bearing and illuminate aura of blue from his still buzzing lightsaber. What happened next, none in the council could say, not even his master or the spirited ghost of Qui-Gon Jinn, not Padme Amidala or Darth Tyrannus, or even the only other person Anakin could trust aside from his wife, Supreme Chancellor Palpatine. All that could be known was this: when Anakin Skywalker journeyed to Korriban and entered the ancient and haunted tombs of old, he was a Jedi Padawan, under the tutelage of Jedi Knight Obi-Wan Kenobi. When next he emerged, isolated in those tombs for 6 months, he was a fully cemented Dark Lord of the Sith. Missing in action throughout several important theaters of war until this point, the battles of Brentile 4, Ikatoch, and Nadium would proceed exactly as in George's timeline. So too would the mission to Amphalos, as well as the now solo journey of Obi-Wan Kenobi onto the planet of Nivik. However, the Battle of Terra Sol, having occurred 1 month into Anakin's 6-month departure, would be a dramatic change, because in George's timeline, the battle is only won by the heroic actions of Anakin Skywalker. While Obi-Wan would still be present for this battle, and while he would still survive, the battle would no longer be a Republic victory. Instead, it would be one of the first of many losses they would now suffer in our timeline. Despite this loss, the numbered wins and victories like the mission to Ithaca, as well as the battles of Aritica and Almatana, would fuel Republic morale. Morale that would be desperately needed after the fall of Depa Billaba and the opening of her council seat, just like in George's timeline. One thing that won't be the same as in George's timeline is Obi-Wan's promotion to Jedi Master and a member of the High Council, something much like Komori Vossa that is never fully explained and only ever implied. As late as Shira Tachi's death, Obi-Wan Kenobi is still referred to as a Jedi Knight throughout the Secrets of the Jedi novel and well into 22 BBY, while she herself was recently made a Jedi Master following the Battle of Geonosis, as mentioned in the Last Jedi Secret Weapons novel. Since no written date or book is given for Obi-Wan's promotion to Jedi Master, the implication is he was made both a Master and Council member at the same time, as highlighted in the novel Shatterpoint, which covers the entirety of the Battle of Harun Kal, roughly 6 months into the 3-year-long Clone Wars. But now, in our timeline, while Obi-Wan would still be promoted to the position of Jedi Master, since so many continue to fall in the war, the position of Depa Biloba's seat would instead go to Mace Windu's own master, Tira Say, because while she might not want the position, there's no one else more qualified than her. This, of course, would then bring us back full circle to Shiratachi, who, in George's timeline, is Obi-Wan's Jedi lover, who dies at the beginning of the Clone Wars. While the exact month is never given, the year is 22 BBY, the first year of the Clone Wars. Without Anakin Skywalker there to fight, and without Padme Amidala herself who was also present, it would just be Ciri and Obi-Wan, meaning the Battle of Azura would be a resounding Confederate victory, and the code-breaking billionaire Taliesin Fry would also die. And while the Battle of Azura might not appear to be a sudden major shift, because in George's timeline it was also a CIS victory, here, in our timeline, Ciri escapes, fleeing far at the behest of the very same Jedi Knight that openly loved her. This would be the galaxy that the Padawan to Obi-Wan Kenobi would return to, feeding himself through the Force and fulfilling every test given to him. Crowned by Marka Ragnos, dueled by Tulak Hord, tested by Ludao Kress, and educated by Darth Zozane. No longer would his old name suffice. No more would the wounds of the past continue to openly vex and pry him, not when the hatred inside of him was seething, baked beneath the very sun-swept skyline that now overshadowed him. For he had now been given his title, carved and created from that which he hated most, the sanded dunes of Tatooine, and his new title was Darth Krayt. And he would have his vengeance. He would have his place over those who subjected him. He would have his power.